The front door wasn't just a door, it was a sequence of traps. Sure, there's the classic drawbridge. But some were engineered to betray you, with drop sections or pivot bridges that flipped attackers into the water or onto stakes. Splice that with a portcullis, the heavy iron grill that slams down from above. Picture this. You charge across. The portcullis slams down behind you. Another in front. The bridge under you tips. And suddenly you're boxed in a stone throat with murder holes in the ceiling. From there, defenders dropped stones, hot water, or hot sand that got into your mail. Places like Harlech stacked multiple obstacles to create this deadly game show. Get the answer wrong, and the floor really does disappear. This elaborate murder box was the primary line of defense, but it was supported by a much larger, grimier obstacle, the moat. Everyone imagines a water moat, but water is expensive to manage. Many castles used dry moats, deep ditches lined with surprises. Stakes, thorny brush, and caltrops, four spiked jacks that always land point up, turned a dash into a bloody crawl. Often, moats became trash pits. Household waste, butcher scraps, and sewage got tossed in. Archaeologists find thousands of objects in them: pottery, buckles, bones. Falling in wasn't just dangerous, it was humiliating. There are even accounts of using snakes as a deterrent. Whether you believe every story, the message is clear. The moat is not a pool. It's a filter that turns armies into individuals. This connection to the raw earth, the ditch, the waste, ran deep. In fact, the very land under the castle held its own memories of death and ritual. The land under castles has its own memory. Builders loved high ground, meaning many castles sit on older sacred sites or burial grounds. Building on a spot already prepped by an earlier culture saved labor and sent a signal: we own the past. At Ireland's Leap Castle, renovations uncovered a shaft packed with human remains far more than a family crypt. Edinburgh Castle's rock was settled thousands of years before the fortress. At Chillingham, a dungeon was adapted from an earlier burial space. At Glamis, the family crypt lies right below the floors where people danced. At Dover, workers in the 13th century disturbed ancient Saxon graves and reportedly refused to work until they were reburied with respect. In a modern mindset, that's creepy. In a medieval religious frame, having the dead underfoot could be protective. The boundary between living and dead was thin. While these human remains lay still, other residents were a constant, living nuisance. While bones lay still, other residents did not. Castles were rodent paradises. Thick walls and kitchens meant endless food and hiding spots. The solution? Teeth and talons. Castles kept cats, many cats. They also used ferrets to chase vermin down holes, and sometimes owls to work the night shift. Did rodents still win? Often, yes. A single pair can become a swarm in a year. Some lords paid bounties per tail turned in by servants. Court stories even feature mice gate-crashing coronation banquets, much to the anger of royalty. This constant battle with rats was slapstick, but it hints at the challenge of managing a large-scale ecosystem. But while these animals were unwelcome pests, castle owners intentionally brought in other, far more dangerous animals as the ultimate status symbol. And then there were pets that weren't there to work. Exotic animals were the ultimate flex. A cheetah in the hall or lions in a menagerie sent a message of power. Some kept a chained bear. Peacocks weren't just decoration. They were culinary theater cooked, then redressed in their feathers for the table. A medieval wow course. Birds of prey had their own rooms. There are records of a giraffe, a royal elephant that died quickly, and monkeys. One baboon reportedly mimicked a priest's blessing, causing a scandal. There are tales of crocodiles. Feeding these creatures through winter was a logistical nightmare. They were costly, living trophies, demonstrating global reach. If you've noticed the pattern, you see the castle wasn't one thing. It was a complex system. It was a courthouse, a pantry, a trap, and a status theater. This is best seen in the very heart of the building, the Great Hall. Let's circle back to the Great Hall, because it explains the soul of the building. Everything converged there. Legal hearings, ritual meals, alliance building. It was a town square under a roof. Where you sat told you who you were. Even the glass windows were a brag, priced like precious materials, allowing the elite to enjoy winter light without the wind. Now, are all these facts set in stone? Some are literal wear marks on stairs. Others come from chronicles. Snakes in a moat refers to reports from certain fortifications, not a universal fact. The point is to see how relentlessly practical these people were, and is to see how much they optimized the same things we still optimize: heat, light, flow, security, signal. You can draw a straight line from a portcullis to a CAPTCHA. You can connect a spiral stairs bias to the way we design right-handed desks. You can look at a hidden chamber and think of back doors in software. This isn't medieval weirdness, it's human problem solving. So, let's make a deal on how you'll visit a castle next. Let's make a deal. Next time you visit a castle, Conwy, Caerphilly, Harlech, Bodiam, Carisbrooke, you don't just read the plaque and snap a turret pick. You find the staircase and test the curve. You stand under a murder hole and imagine rain getting weaponized. You put your ear near a curve and whisper. You look for a seam in the stone where a door might be. You take the romance and layer in the engineering. The place will stop being a ruin and start being a machine again. One last cliffhanger before we close. The scariest thing in a castle wasn't the dungeon or the drawbridge or the snakes. It was the guest list. Architecture could slow you down, trip you up, box you in, and listen to you. But what decided whether a castle thrived or fell was who got invited to sit near the fire and who was told to keep walking in the wind. That's why the stone is covered in theater. It wasn't enough to be safe. You had to look safe, sell safe, and sometimes lie about safe. The walls that kept enemies out also kept a story in.